Welcome to Grace Fellowship Baptist Church Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. We are in the book of First Chronicles. We're in chapter 19. Let's start in verse 1. In the course of time, Nahash, king of the Ammonites, died, and his son succeeded him as king. David thought, I will show kindness to Hanan, son of Nahash, because his father showed kindness to me. So David sent a delegation to express his sympathy to Hanan concerning his father. When David's men came to Hanan in the land of the Ammonites to express sympathy to him, the Ammonite nobles said to Hanan, Do you think David is honoring your father by sending men to you to express sympathy? Haven't his men come to you to explore and spy out the country and overthrow it? So Hanan seized David's men, shaved them, cut off their garments in the middle of the buttocks, and sent them away. When someone came and told David about the men, he sent messengers to meet them, for they were greatly humiliated. The king said, Stay at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then come back. I'm going to pause there for a minute. This is telling how David won. It is the story of the defeating of the Ammonites. If you remember, last week we had a summary of all of David's victories. And he beat everybody and he beat these people and those people. Ammonites is one of the people that he defeated. And so this is telling the story of that war. And it's telling it in greater detail, telling all the politics about it. And it started with David's ally, Nahash, dying. And Nahash had been kind to David, and honestly, David had married one of his daughters, and they had had some military alliances, and Nahash had a small empire. He hadn't gone toward Israel. He had gone across the Euphrates. He had conquered Arameans. He had started unifying all the Arameans under himself, and he would eventually create, if his son had not been stupid here, a great empire that would have threatened Israel. But God was directing events. God wanted David and his men to conquer the Ammonites, and so he set up this incident. And Nahash had been an honorable man and honored the Israelites and honored David, and it had blessed David. His son, Hanan, was not an honorable man. He listened to the wrong advisors. The advisors built conspiracy theories, and he took their conspiracy theories and did the worst possible. Well, I suppose you could have done worse than that, but he was very insulting. Here's ambassadors to your country from a country that's nominally your ally, nominally you're friends with, and you shave their beards and cut their clothes off at the buttocks so their genitalia are exposed, and then you drive them out of the country. Can you be more insulting? Maybe. He left them alive. I'll admit that. But he showed very foolish behavior. And, David does the right things, and when he gets a messenger that tells what had been done, he sends a messenger out and has them stop at the first city in Israel and say, live there until your beards regrow, and you're no longer in dishonor. And obviously sent them clothing. He didn't have them run around Jericho half-dressed. This is recounted in 2 Samuel chapter 10. In fact, to this point, it's word for word the same in the Hebrew. But if you remember from last week, 1 Chronicles 18 was 2 Samuel chapter 8. This is Chronicles 19, and it's 2 Samuel 10. So what happened? What's in Samuel that's not in 1 Chronicles? Well, 2 Samuel chapter 9 deals with Mephibosheth, Saul's son, who was lame in his feet, and it starts telling the story of David's character and how Mephibosheth is actually Jonathan's son, Saul's grandson. And it tells the story about how David honored Mephibosheth, and it's telling about David's character. 2 Samuel is all about David. Chronicles is about the country. And so they're not too concerned with David's character. Centuries later, he's already a hero. Everybody knows. They're not trying to build David up or show his character, and they're just trying to show how the country got to be the way it is. And so Mephibosheth does not materially affect the country. It shows David's character, but that's all it shows. And David is already well known at this point in time. He's a larger-than-life hero, and so they're not dealing with that. They're just leaving it alone and don't tell about the minor characters. And so chapter 9 of Samuel is just left out. It's unimportant. On the other hand, 2 Samuel was well written, and so by and large, chapter 19 is a quote of 2 Samuel chapter 10. Same number of verses. The verses are exactly the same verses. Let's pick up in verse 6. When the Ammonites realized that they had become a stench in David's nostrils, Hanun and the Ammonites sent 1,000 talents of silver to hire chariots and charioteers from Aram Naharaim, Aram Maacah, and Zobah. They hired 22,000 chariots and charioteers, as well as the king of Maacah with his troops, who came and camped near Medeba, while the Ammonites were mustered from their towns and moved out for battle. So this is verse 6 and 7, and it is one of the places where things are a little bit different from 2 Samuel chapter 10. One thing, it tells the amount of silver was used. It updates the names of the countries and the towns to the contemporary names that they were. And you get one name that we recognize even today. Medeba is the same city that the Arabs hold to be sacred. I should say Muslims hold to be sacred. Arabs don't necessarily, but since most Arabs are Muslim, Uh, and so, in the meantime, the ensuing centuries, the city has been named Medeba, and it's stayed that same name till today. Um, in 2 Samuel, the name was just not given. So we don't have a historical record of what the city was named then. It may still have been named Medeba, but it had become a more important city in the meantime. And the countries that Nahash had conquered and were his vassal states had changed names. And Hanan hired soldiers from these vassal states to help him in his war. And so, the names that the Babylonians knew them by was a little bit different, and they named them with the contemporary names. Verse 8. On hearing this, David sent Joab out with the entire army of fighting men. The Ammonites came out and drew up in battle formation at the entrance to their city, while the kings who had come were by themselves in the open country. Joab saw that there were battle lines in front of him and behind him, so he selected some of his best troops in Israel and deployed them against the Arameans. He put the rest of the men under the command of Abashi, his brother, and they were deployed against the Ammonites. Joab said, "If the Arameans are too strong for me, then you are to rescue me. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I will rescue you. Be strong and let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight." Then Joab and the troops with him advanced to fight the Arameans, and they fled before him. When the Ammonites saw that the Arameans were fleeing, they too fled before his brother Abashi and went inside the city. So Joab went back to Jerusalem. So the first battle, Joab gets there and he finds himself essentially surrounded. He has one army in front of him, another army behind him. His flanks are open, but this isn't a good battle position. It's not good to have two groups attacking you. So he does a reasonable thing. He divides his army in half. He selects one group that he's going to lead and attack the people out in the open field. He's going to put the rest of them under his brother, which in chapter 18 we heard about in 1 Chronicles for the first time as a leader of troops, as he was given credit for defeating the Edomites. Here is actually the first place he gets to lead men in battle as a general. Before that, he had been just a mighty warrior, and his brother puts him in charge because he's got to put somebody in charge, and he puts the best man he has available to be a general. And, Joab gives the charge. Hey, if you're getting beat, I'll come rescue you. If I'm getting beat, you come rescue me. Let's face it, they're brothers. They're going to have each other's back. And Joab goes out with the elite troops and he attacks the weaker army. They're not on their home front. It doesn't matter as much to them. And this is a brilliant strategy. They don't have the heart to fight. They're just being paid to fight. They're not being paid to die. When they get some real fighting going on, they don't really have heart to fight this battle. And as soon as things start going badly, they turn and flee. We want to live to another day. and they flee. The Ammonites, they see the larger army that's supposed to be helping them start fleeing, and they give up the fight too, and they go back into their city. They'd rather be sieged than die on the battlefield. And so Joab and Abashi win the battle, and they go back to Jerusalem. If Hanan had been wise, he would have left it alone right there and said, okay, I was stupid, I got defeated, let's try to pick up and make the best of the situation we can with diplomacy. And he could have survived longer. But God meant for the Ammonites to be defeated, for the Arameans to be defeated, and become part of David's vassals. So Hanan doubled down. Verse 16. Verse 16. After the Arameans saw that they had been routed by Israel, they sent messengers and had Arameans brought from beyond the river with Shophach, the commander of Hadadezer's army, leading them. When David was told of this, he gathered all Israel and crossed the Jordan. He advanced against them and formed his battle lines opposite them. David formed his lines to meet the Arameans in battle, and they fought against him. But they fled before Israel, and David killed 7,000 of their charioteers and 40,000 of their foot soldiers. He also killed Shophach, the commander of their army. When the vassals of Hadadezer saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they made peace with David and became subject to him. So the Arameans were not willing to help the Ammonites anymore. The Arameans still had some part of their country that wasn't a vassal to the Ammonites. And so they had some pride, and they were trying to establish an empire. And they were like, yeah, we're not going to let getting defeated by David stop us. We got to go out here and stop David. So they got all of their countrymen, and I say countrymen, the Arameans at this point in time had a bunch of city-states. They did not have a unified country. They had a culture that was across a fairly large swath of land, and most of those city-states were fairly strong and fairly independent countries. But they were also allies, not competitors with each other. And so if an external threat threatened a city, they all stood together and all came to fight together. Some of them had been hired as mercenaries for the Ammonites, but the rest of them are like, whoa, no, y'all getting defeated on the battlefield isn't acceptable. We're going to come and we're going to win. We're going to all come and win. And so they gathered together and they hired the best commander they could hire from the strongest country they were allied with, and says, let's go take care of David. And when David heard that, he mustered the whole army and he went out, and God gave him a victory. Hadadezer was one of the men that in chapter 18, one of the kings that David had conquered. We now find how it happened. And by the way, these verses in chapter 19 are essentially the same as they are in 2 Samuel chapter 10, the equivalent verses. There's one small detail difference. The name of the commander, and again, it's a proper name, and in 2 Samuel, it's the Hebrew version of his name, and in 1 Chronicles, it's the Armenian version of his name. And so we have in 1 Chronicles here his real name instead of the name the Israelites called him. But other than that, it's the same. And so David defends the country and defeats and ends up with a large empire that extended past the Euphrates River. So he conquered into now what's Iran, because the Ammonites and the Ammonite king was stupid, and then they hired, and those people were stupid, and God orchestrated that. David wasn't going out to go conquer that far. He wasn't meaning to have an empire and have a name as being a conqueror. He didn't have that kind of ego. He meant simply to defend his country. And he had been trying to be an honest man and honor the son of the man who had been his ally. And God used it so that he expanded the empire out past where Abraham had come from. So under David, the Israelites basically have conquered all the land from Egypt to into what's going to be Babylon. And they control it all because of these misadventures of these countries. And, David becomes very powerful, very wealthy, and can bring in lots of revenue. And Solomon will use that revenue to help pay for the building of the temple, the building of the palace, the shoring up of Jerusalem, and will administer a great commercial empire and become very wealthy. He's not a great military man. He's not conquering. Just like David, he's not out to conquer the world. He's out to administer and have Israel well run. And this is just telling how God set that up. And so the purpose the writers of First Chronicles have is they're not as interested in telling David's story as they are telling the country's story. But in this case, they are the one and the same story. And they're pointing out to themselves, to the Babylonians, that historically they have had an empire that stretched from Israel all the way into what was at the time they were writing it, Babylon. And that they had conquered it, and it was part of the country that God had promised them. And they were reminding the people, God promised it, it has been part of us, and, they're pointing out that God will make it happen again. Honestly, the Jews have never, ever seen that extent of an empire again. So we're still waiting on the fulfillment of that promise. Holy Father, you had David to be the mighty warrior that you used to keep the people safe, and that they could then have a safe empire that allowed them to set up temple worship and do things your way, that they would be, for a generation or so, honestly, sincerely worshiping you and doing what you wanted them to do. And it was because David was a man after your own heart, and his influence on his country led them to become your people, not just people you chose, but people that worshiped you and honored you. And you used David's son Solomon to build the temple and make the people secure and wealthy. Lord, you are a God of good, and you provide good things for your people. Lord, I do ask that you provide good things for us again. This country, has it been at one point in time filled full of your people, and you blessed it when it was. But Lord, Americans have turned their back on you. They've devised their own morality. They do what's right in their own eyes. And they use the political freedom you gave them here instead of using it to further your glory and your kingdom and your righteousness in the whole earth. They've used it for their own glory and their own feelings. And Lord, you would be righteous to wipe us out. But I ask that you be merciful and you redeem us once again with mighty revivals breaking out and a movement of your spirit and a great awakening of this country again to become your people. I ask for this in your holy name. Amen. I am your host, Frank Reich, Associate Pastor of Family and Ministry at Grace Fellowship Baptist Church, and this has been the Wednesday evening Bible study for April 16th, 2025. This was recorded on Saturday, April 5th, 2025. This coming week for me is going to be a very busy week. It's the run-up to Palm Sunday. Because of circumstances at work, I'm going to have to put in a full day of work next Saturday, and so work 6-8 hour days in a row, possibly more than that some of those days, and we'll be extremely exhausted. Obviously, the Palm Sunday service is going to be a big deal, and it's shaping up well, and I need to have time to be ready for that. Then, I could record on Sunday, but I decided to record today, record two, and try to keep them straight. I know that means either next weekend or on Easter weekend, recording the next Bible study for the 23rd, but I think that's a whole lot more doable than try to record a Bible study next week. So that's the way I did it. I hope to see you Wednesday. I hope to see you Sunday. I hope to see you on Palm Sunday. I hope you will pay attention, study Scripture for yourself, and come back Wednesday ready to study and discuss and apply. Have a blessed week.